Atelier Yumia, the Alchemist of Memories, and the Envisioned Land is the latest entry in the Atelier franchise by Koei Tecmo and GUST. And I will say, going into this one, I was a bit worried about some of their previews, specifically how they kept emphasizing, exploration, combat, and it kind of felt like a fear of, they keep emphasizing everything but the actual synthesis mechanic was one thing I was worried about. And some of my worries kind of came true, but we'll get into that later. So the main premise of Atelier Yumia is that there used to be an empire called the Alchemist Empire that, after one event, just kind of got destroyed, just gone, just poofed, with no one truly knowing the details since it happened centuries ago. But what they do know is that alchemy was to blame, so alchemy became taboo. Which in comes in our protagonist Yumia, who is an alchemist and pretty much the only alchemist because of the taboo status of alchemy, who wants to know the truth for herself because her mom was an alchemist and doesn't want to believe that her mom was a bad person, that alchemy itself is bad, and since no one actually explores into what happened to the Alchemist Empire, that is Yumia's goal, although it's such as an uphill battle with people from the get-go not trusting her to be an alchemist. Even characters you meet who become party members early on don't even trust you. I won't say they're fully against you. It's kind of like an idea of they want to believe in you, but also, when you're using a method that's been outlawed for centuries, it's kind of like, yeah, you can see why they would kind of be distrustful and are more of the I'm just doing my job rather than initially starting out with let's be friends. What I was immediately surprised by is the fact that this game starts with an in-media res with highlighting, hey, here's an instance some battles early on to tutorialize your certain mechanics, that way they can get things done out of the way, and also immediately having you confront the villain group before then flashing back to how it all started, which I guess for Atelier, I just didn't expect an in-media res for the kind of games Atelier are to me, that kind of thing. I've already seen them as we need a dramatic opening for this. I don't really see that kind of thing. Though I will say at the in-media res, you do make up an hour of tutorialization, but tutorials do go pretty fast when it comes to explaining things, so don't really think the prologue is really all that bad, and having this in-media res that's on the interviews was to get pushed to action immediately. Feels kind of like overcorrection, but it's not anything bad, it works. Overall, I do like the story of this game and the stuff it goes with you, especially the whole entire memory aspect of this game, how to tell the story. I do really like that aspect, but something I do find interesting that there are some things brought up in side quests that I thought it would actually get more pursued on in this game, but some of those aspects don't. They're brought in to highlight character moments and stories, but you don't really get a resolution to those, which I feel like if they do the usual Atelier thing of having a trilogy, then I feel like if they make like a next game with a new cast or whatever, then probably those characters could follow up on those narrative beats that are brought up here and pretty much be like, hey, here's a detail about this world that maybe we can do with later. So I do find that interesting that there are some seeds here that are like, hey, if we want to do more here, we could possibly have something more to do that with their trilogies. So it's an interesting setup. I will say, despite the fact that alchemy is heavily tabooed and there are NPC chatter and stuff, conversations, such as like I mentioned, people are wary of Yumia and her using alchemy, very much treating like she's a witch or something, I will find it surprising that the characters are still immediately open to asking her for help when it comes to alchemy and everything. So I feel like early on, I'm surprised, like I know they brought her on, I know she's under observation by the research group, but it still feels weird how the observation, because you're doing legal taboo. Can you give me a chair real quick? Quick, an energy generator? We need a bed right now, can you give me a bed? Like, it feels weird that they then go asking you for like casual stuff because of the random quest system where quests pop up, and it could be like fight some monsters, help a person being chased, get some items, or make some stuff. So the fact that these people are supposed to start out as being wary of Yumia, but they will ask for the most mundane of things, does feel kind of goofy in that, especially since the story does make more points of more characters being like, hey, don't tell anyone here you're an alchemist kind of thing, but then it's like, can you make me a bed? Now on to the gameplay. I'll say right now, for exploration, by God, there is a lot to explore. Granted, you will notice similar beats and places you go to, being that's like, oh, activate this little stone thing, or oh, activate these little shrines and stuff like that. So it can feel repetitive since you're doing a lot of things constantly, but there's just so many different places to go to get material and items and monsters to fight to get more material and items, and the fact that Yumia is the most mobile protagonist I've seen in Atelier franchise, because it's the ability to essentially do double and triple jumps, which at first you can only do on walls and stuff, so it limits how far you can go. But in later upgrades, you can do triple and triple jumps just regularly, and that is super cool for exploration. And despite these upgrades, the game is still built around if you don't have them. You will find stuff around that you can still wall jump, or stuff you can block so you can pull out and you need them to get to certain places if you don't have these upgrades. So they did think of, okay, well, someone did have these upgrades, here's some stuff in the environment that they can still use. So they're still thinking about that, but just the movement Yumia has going around is just super cool, especially early on. I'm trying my best to just maneuver her to certain areas, trying my best to fight the right wall jump, the right elevation, the perfect angle, the perfect running start, and it feels so satisfying when you're able to get her to places. Although it will feel weird that I do have to work hard to get her to certain locations for exploration, and then there are points in the story where, for our side quests, where you may get sent to those locations, and the game will pretty much act as if you didn't fight them already. I remember one point I was trying to figure out how to get to a location, only for later in the game a side quest to basically point me there, even telling me the exact pathway. I figured out by myself, but apparently I guess I wasn't supposed to be there yet. So the game's like acting as if, hey, we could go here, we can get to that place. Like, we've already been here, guys. What are you talking about? I scouted this one entire place. I got everything. But there are some aspects like that where sometimes the game expected you to go there via a side quest rather than just naturally exploring. But it shows that you can just explore and have fun like that. One thing from the previews I thought wouldn't be that great was this motorcycle device you get later on. That I thought, I mean, what kind of exploration can it do? How useful can a motorcycle be? The answer, pretty useful, because they actually did design the world for you to be able to use that motorcycle for a good bit and chunk around the places, even getting some freaking cool jumps. You just freaking boost and jump off high ledges, just the right timing. So they did think about that, and places are generally wide enough and big enough for you to use that device as well, which is super cool. Although it can't triple jump like Yumia, so even small ledges may be too much for it and may get stuck at to jump off it and jump onto the ledge, then get back on it. It feels weird, kind of like that. You can grab small items and stuff off the ground on a motorcycle, but big stuff, you gotta get off of it. I mean, it's quick to do, but it's one of those things that's like, it's clearly there for moving fast. And specifically, now we have combat, and my goodness, the characters are capable, and combat's where some of the issues start to show in this game. Based on the fact that a bunch of the characters are very capable with the abilities they get, and they level up pretty fast, with there being upgrades to skill tree to level up even faster. Which is a problem, because it's a very common thing I've seen that people will reach the level cap of this game way before they're ever near the finale of the game because of how fast the characters level up. And one of my issues is the fact that because the characters are so capable with their skills, making equipment early on, specifically combat items that work on cooldowns, may not be fully worth it early on if you can't make them powerful, because of the fact that the characters will be so efficient that you don't really need them. Granted, you can use items when enemies are stunned for a friendly action, you do boosted damage, so it's good to have them, but because of early on investing, the character's combat equipment comes first. Granted, later on, I mean late in the game, I was able to make such busted combat items that were doing multiple hits of 5-digit damage and straight through enemies. I was just saying, I shot through the final boss in like 30 seconds. So you can make some powerful stuff with the stuff you get, but the characters themselves are so capable that early on you might even see a reason to be making these combat items because of how good they are. You might just invest in making their weapons and armor instead of the actual combat equipment, which just feels weird to me that it feels like combat equipment took a backseat in an Atelier game until later on we make such busted equipment. More aspects to combat includes the fact you're able to tag out party members, whether it be tag out people in the front row to switch over, which can lead you to doing a precision counter, where when you perfect dodge, you can swap out, and the person swapping into will then do an attack, and you keep doing that over and over when you're good at dodging. You can also have the character back out to do range attacks because enemies' stun gauges may go down either through close-up attacks or ranged ones, so there is a lot of moves you can do, and such a positioning can also make it so you're either with enemy attacks as well, which is super cool. There's also an ability called Mana Surge when the meter fills 100%. I only ever got Mana Surge to work once, and that was because that was the only time a fight lasts long enough Mana Surge to even be full. Because of how easy the combat is, using Mana Surge on normal mode at least, you'll probably never use it or only use it once if you specifically make it so you do because of how fast fights go. You are so powerful in this game that fights go by so fast. This one-time mechanic meant to be the super cool freaking super mode, complete with new combat animations for your attacks, everything. It's freaking amazing and cool, but I'm going to use it once because of the fact of fights would always go by so fast. So you may want to choose higher difficulty, trying to say when it comes to this game, because you do have the option of hard and very hard early on, and there is another difficulty mode unlocked after you beat in the game. Why do games keep doing that? Just how difficult from the get-go. Another aspect of gameplay is building, where you can build bases and whatnot all over the land, or build campfire sites as well, which I don't like this mechanic. It's mostly because it just doesn't feel worth it to really build anything yourself. I'll just use the presets entirely, especially since I mentioned this, but every region in this game has pioneering efforts, and every single location has pioneering efforts saying, oh, you need to make a base that has a certain threshold of comfortness. But the way to increase it becomes so arbitrary that I feel like I'm just shoving stuff all over the place rather than actually making an actual logical base. And I'm just trying to fill out the point meter just to even get the thing done. Then comes one of the worst parts about building is the fact that when it comes to building, there's certain type of things you can make. Some are just a regular base, some are just freaking a greenhouse, which is super cool, but I'll get more stuff like that later. But it's a fact that it's weird how if you build a base first and decide, I want to add a greenhouse here, you have to basically erase the base you already made in order to add the greenhouse for some reason, because you can't just add it after the fact, if you do have the space and the points to do so. I just find that kind of aspect weird, where if I want to change what kind of main facility it has, I have to basically start from square one, even if every facility can in fact coexist. If I make the greenhouse first and the base, then the both can coexist. But for some reason, if I do it all the way around, where it's the base then the greenhouse, then all of a sudden, freaking the base has to be erased. Which is why I don't feel the effort of making your own base by hand is really worth it. And then came an aspect that I really don't like that this game did, is the fact that some side quests require you to build certain things, certain specific areas of the region. And there was one area region I was basically using as my home base because I had everything there, all sorts of stuff set up. And the game told me, no, we wanted the side quest, delete all that and place this specific object here in order to complete the side quest. And it made you just a definition of, oh, building in this game is effing worthless. Having any sort of pride and care to actually making a base yourself, effing worthless, because sometimes some side quests can just ask you to delete all of it because of that aspect. This is the aspect where your bases can get attacked by monsters, which require to hunt on a monster in order to have that part of the facility working again, which just makes the idea of doing this all the more annoying to me. Then there's the worst part about this, not worst, but weird aspect, is the fact that since you're making bases all over, it basically makes Yumia's Atelier completely redundant, because why would you go back to there for synthesis where you can effectively have any base be your Atelier for synthesis, making that whole entire landmark basically pointless from a gameplay standpoint. It just feels so weird, especially in a game with fast travel where you can just fast travel to any random base you've ever made at any point and just do your work there. So that aspect just makes the Atelier redundant. It makes you feel weird why I didn't even make the point of giving her an Atelier specifically. But building is just one aspect, and doing pioneering efforts and stuff or side quests, then basically you don't have to care about it. Now comes first synthesis. So you get materials throughout this game, and something I found interesting is that every kind of material can generally be gotten just through Yumia's tool set. Like, in other Atelier games, you would need like special tools or to get certain objects and stuff, but here, no, Yumia's staff can do it. Need to get a fruit from a tree? Just shoot it. Need to break some rocks? Break some with your staff. Need to break some bigger rocks? Use some energy, and you can break those rocks too. Like, her staff can do basically everything that tools in the previous games could do, which is interesting and makes it more speedy, so you need to have to make tools and then make better versions of the tools, etc. Because from the get-go, all the resources are possible for you to get. Now for synthesis, early on, there's not much to it, but with the Recall Recipe Workbench, you can use particles you can find throughout the world in order to buff the items and make doing synthesis more efficient, because you have access to more and more levels of it. I'm kind of split on this, because there's one way of being able to upgrade and get better versions of stuff, but it also makes it feel like you basically have to really pick and choose what you want to have better versions of, because particles, well, you can get more, basically require just going around grinding all over the place when I find them, so it can become tedious to get a lot more if you want a lot of stuff to be fully upgraded. And this whole entire aspect of that whole entire thing just feels weird. Like, I want a more powerful weapon, I have to use particle to make it more powerful, then I can use synthesis to access more abilities, and my synthesis it would make it more powerful. And that's on top of the fact that adding more to the synthesis makes it take longer to do just to make one item. There's some poor points where I just didn't want to do more synthesis because either I didn't feel like I needed the items being made, and it feels like, you know what, why not just waste time doing this? And that is a weird aspect. The idea of the feeling that I'm wasting time making items in a Atelier game because of how long the process can get if you fully upgrade an item and have to go through several of the nodes when you're synthesizing, and it just feels weird. Like, I didn't want to make weapons for my whole party because I'm going to be maxed out with particles, then having to go through the long process felt weird. There is the auto button, I could just use auto whatever, but I don't like trusting that unless I really don't care what the item's going to be. I'm just making it just a point to make it. But another thing, Amateur Pioneering Efforts, which is a list of things you can do for each region for the research group, and one thing that I hate is the fact that if you made something before getting the Pioneering Effort task, it will not count. You have to make it after gaining requests, which, just like exploration, can make it feel like you're being punished for being proactive. On top of that, when they say make 3 of this, they don't mean do a synthesis that provides you several quantities of it. They mean do the synthesis for the item 3 times. And it just feels weird. It's like, I got 3 of the thing from one session because of, oh, I did super good at making it. Well, I gotta do it 2 more times. Like, I'm just wasting resources at that point. Just that aspect just feels weird. Synthesis, where it feels like it feels more like busy work at times in this game than actually fun. Like, it feels more dull to do, but it's also like the most easiest synthesis I can think of in recent memory in a Atelier game, where you can make like busted items thanks to a particle system and everything, and thanks to extra features that I'll get into. But it's weird, like, it feels the most busy work, but also feels like you get the most out of it if you fully commit to it as well. So I guess that's basically your, hey, do you want to deal more with this? Do you want to get better results? Or do you want to not just deal with the process, especially in a game that are almost pretty easy to go through? Now later on, you do get blueprints for devices that can help you with synthesizing, and by help you, I mean break the game harder than it already was. Like, one thing I mentioned was greenhouses. It allows you to duplicate materials for free. And I thought the timer on it was for some items was like, oh, I get 1 of this every 35 minutes. No, that meant 1 every 35 seconds. So you can just duplicate your very good material so fast, and it's like, why the hell would you put this in the game? Especially when I can place multiple of these things and just basically farm the hell out of it. Hell, there's one thing later that allows you to just duplicate like finished items, and that's like, what? And granted, you're duplicating stuff like equipment, it takes longer, like 17 minutes, which is It's not a crazy amount of time, but you know what? For creating equipment, it's on the best tier. Probably should be longer. Like I'm duplicating S tier perfectly made items game. Should not be this easy. But then there's one where I won't see what it was, but I made a material for synthesis that basically allows me to just completely easily do any synthesis in the entire game, and I was able to duplicate that item once every like 5 minutes. And I was like, why does this thing take less effort to duplicate than my equipment? I get why, because it's less complicated, but when the item in question allows me to just basically cheese any and all synthesizing, I feel like that thing should take longer to make, especially with a late game item. So there's stuff like that where you have stuff all over the game to just break the game wide open if you want to. And in some cases, you'll be breaking it open if you don't want to. Like I said, because of how often the characters level up, you'll probably reach for level 100 before you reach the end of the game. So, like I said, synthesis can feel like a drag, can feel like a bit dull, and like you're just doing the task over and over but not getting much results from it because the particle system decides how strong the item will be. But it feels like you do go to the effort getting the particles, you go to the effort of buffing the item and everything, and get a powerful item, you're rewarded with a powerful item, and can potentially just, cut a final boss in like 30 seconds like I did. So there are rewards to doing it, but it just feels like the most tedious version of doing synthesis, and it feels like some things were streamlined, not for the sake of keeping it more snappier, but more in the case of synthesis, despite alchemy being so important into the plot of the game, it feels like gameplay-wise, it takes a backseat compared to exploration and gameplay, the combat specifically. Like, synthesis is the lesser of everything else, which is why I was worried about them not focusing on it much in previews, because it feels like it followed more an obligation to the game more than anything else, which is not what I want to say. Even though there's all I can get out of it, I can get from it, but a lot of the stuff, even the pioneering of efforts, is more about do more combat stuff, make more base building, make more stuff like this, and sometimes it's like, oh, make 3 of this thing, I guess. So it really shows you where the priority of the game is more than exploration, even if some of the tasks you're doing in exploration is repeated multiple times ad nauseum, and the combat, which once again can make using combat items kind of not necessary, but you can make powerful combat items through synthesis. What I'm going to note here is that the more I went to this game, the more buggier the game got. Like, at a certain region, the game just starts, technological-wise, breaking in certain aspects. Like, I found myself falling through the world multiple times and getting stuck, or sometimes because of Yumia's free movement, she can get accidentally stuck between 2 objects, and the game will respawn you if you're unable to move for a certain amount of time. So I did think about that, but it got worse and worse, whether it be hitting invisible walls a lot because I'm trying to get to a place, trying to figure out how to get there, and the game's like, nope, invisible wall, F you. Or sometimes I get to a place, but I'm not supposed to actually be there, so the ground itself isn't actually solid, and I just fall and get stuck in an abyss to pretty much fast travel out of there, which I also just don't like. And there's just a point late in the game where, despite there being items to get in an area, I somehow wandered into a location that had partially loaded assets from a locale that I wasn't even in anymore, or it was partially loading in assets for a location that is nearby but that I wasn't in, so I said only partially loaded, so I was either falling to the ground, getting stuck in places all over. It was just a complete and total mess. It's like one of the most buggiest games I think I've played in a while. My goodness, like, it just feels weird just trying to explore, have fun, stumble around, and then suddenly, bam, here comes Yumia appearing into multiple dimensions, I guess she has ascended. Such those weird aspects like that started happening around the 3rd region I went to, where it just became more and more buggier, and the locale became more and more unstable, and being like a case of, ooh, sorry, we're supposed to actually go there, whoops, despite the heavy emphasis on exploration and where Yumia can move around and get to. Now for the game's text. Oh yeah, but you didn't think I was bringing this one back up. So, Let's go over some things. In the beginning of the game, you do have the option to customize the text, the size specifically, and also some presets for the colors, because you like the colors being shown, which is super cool. And later on, you do have the option to also change the transparency of the boxes so we have a background to them, which is also super cool. However, this does not apply to every case of text in the game. This specifically applies to text boxes during cutscenes when the characters are talking. But when it comes to text boxes when the characters are talking as you're exploring, that will still have pretty small text. I say it's big enough, maybe just barely enough, I'd say, to get a pass, but it still feels weird. And then there are text boxes in combat where there is no background for them at all, and they're minuscule as all hell, and you can't change those. And it's weird because they'll also use that to highlight boss dialogue, and it is so minuscule and tiny during major boss battles. We should be paying attention to the actual fight, and it just feels weird how why give this option to customize and then not apply it all over. This also happens for also certain cutscenes with a different style. Once again, there'll be no background for them, it'll just be white text on the screen, and it tends to blend in with the background going on, just like the problem with the actual text during like gameplay and boss encounters. So stuff like that, it's like you give the option to increase the text, but then you don't really use it in places where you could have really fixed it. It really only affects the text box when it comes to actual cutscene dialogue and also the casual dialogue when you're talking to NPCs, but not the dialogue when exploring, not the dialogue for combat whatsoever. And it feels so weird how why you have the option like this and it's not just universal at that point. Like, I mean, it's better than previous games, everything, but it is still a weird decision to not have it be more universal, especially in a game with a Japanese only voice track. So needing to subtitle everything is more important than ever before, especially during boss battles, which it is subtitled, but it is so minuscule that good luck seeing it without using the console accessibility mode in order to zoom in while the boss is also attacking you. And also the game's easy, but I don't want to get the boss getting free pot shots on me. So I wish the text could be done better. They are improving, they are getting better, so there is props to be had. I just wish it could go further than what they currently have. Overall, despite how harsh it may have seemed in many aspects of this game, I actually really like Atelier Yumia, and it's freaking great. As much as I bash the building, it's because I'm better to hate the fact that the place I made my central base had to be demolished for sake of a side quest. I mean, technically any spot I picked could just become my central base, so it wasn't that bad, especially when I started spreading things out more. So, issue building, feeling tacked on and weird. Combat is still fun even if it's super easy, but hey, if you want to up things, you can go to hard and very hard mode as well in order to try and add more challenge. Synthesis, once again, it feels weird to me, but for others, could feel like it's more rewarding to get the particles than upgrade the items for the particles. They do the long synthesis. I just feel like the idea of trying to make these more snappier by having Yumia stack able to get all the kinds of material, only trying to have synthesis take so long to do, feels like they pretty much one step forward, two steps back kind of thing. But it was just great, even if a lot of the tasks you're doing in regions are repeated constantly. I don't know, I just really liked the game. I just really enjoyed, had a fun time. Hell, I put like 160 plus hours into this game. I want to have 100% pioneering in all the regions. I want all the stuff from the regions bonuses that you get from doing pioneering efforts. So I'll start all the side quests and everything. So I really enjoyed the game, and freaking if they want to do another game within this world, probably with different casts, they usually do, unless they're really gonna try to pull a Ryza again and be like, nope, another entry with Yumi's protagonist. Who knows, really? Either way, what they do next, I'm so excited. There's this freaking cool game that, like I said, exploration. It's just super cool level stuff you can just do to explore, even if it does lead to the game pretty much falling apart in places because of, whoops, the player wasn't supposed to go there. There was one time, actually, I'm trying to footage of it, but there was one time where I actually got stuck behind an invisible wall. how the F did I end up behind an invisible wall? So there's just stuff like that, but I like the story to go with, which is a memory aspect. I do like how they don't try and completely shy away from, hey, if Alchemist taboo, then people should be looking down on Yumia, or people who even accept her help should be like, okay, but don't tell anyone that you're an alchemist though, shh. I do like that aspect of the story, how they are more committed to that, and not like not the idea of everyone being like, I know this is taboo, but I believe in you anyway from the get-go. No, we're not doing that. The characters do have their doubts and worriness from the get-go, so I do like that aspect because it keeps it with the story. And I'm the villain group. The villain group, it's gonna sound weird. I like the villain group in terms of how they work for the story and the themes and everything, but not necessarily as, I don't find them interesting as characters. Like, they do great for the story and what's being told, but as actual characters themselves, they're okay. They're not anything bad. They're okay, although I will say that two of them in question are definitely being carried hard by their voice actors in question. So there is that aspect. Overall, this Atelier Yumia is great, and there is a free demo you can play, and also transfer your save data to the main game as well. So, hey, you can transfer your save progress, so demo, so why not just try it out for yourself if you get into it. That's all I gotta say, and it's just a super fun game despite all the gripes I have. Like I said, I wish I would stop stuff onto the world. Okay, now that is all.